Hi, it's Lauren at Craft Some Joy, and I'm so excited to bring you another collaboration of Scrap With Me ×3. My buddies Noreen and Kylie and I have all collaborated one more time to bring you some fresh new content right here on YouTube. We have used the beautiful new Wanderlust collection and created some fun, interesting, interactive pages for you. So when you're done watching the video here, I would love for you to hop on over to Noreen at Organized and Creative Mom and Kylie at Paper Sweet Pea. All of their shopping links and social links and video links will be listed in the description of this video, so make sure to check that out. And as always, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us so we know that you are enjoying this content. Okay, so are you ready to jump in? Let's get started. Okay, so let's jump right in and make these fun Peekaboo Pocket interactive pages. And let's first get started by figuring out exactly what we're going to need to make this project. So in front of me, I have some of the beautiful Wanderlust collection. And the more I use this collection, the more I just really, really love it. So today, what I'm going to need you to grab from the Wanderlust collection is both the designer paper pack and the tone on tone paper pack. And from the designer paper pack, we're going to use 3 sheets. We're going to use the camera, 2 sheets of the camera, and the white Wanderlust. So I'm going to show you the front and the back side. The camera has the brown kind of leather looking paper on the back, and the Wanderlust printed has the blue stripe paper on the back. So we're going to need 3 sheets from the designer paper pack, and we are also going to need some paper from the tone on tone. And from the tone on tone, you'll need to use just a small strip of this photographic kind of newspaper print. And on the back side of that are the little airplanes. We're going to use both sheets of the blue map paper. This is gorgeous and makes a beautiful background. And on the back of that is the kind of brown arrow and world paper on the back of that. So we'll need 2 sheets of that. The last would be this really beautiful dark brown leather type paper with the gray Wanderlust printing on the back. As always, I encourage you to use what you have, but if you want to follow along and make your pages look like the ones I'll be showing you, this is what I'll be using from the collection. So in addition to those 2 paper packs, we're going to need a few embellishments, which are your choice again. So for this layout, I did use the little one that says the view and the camera and explore, but you know, feel free to change it up and make the layout work for you. I'm also using 3 of the laser mats from the laser mat pack that comes in the Wanderlust collection. And these are gorgeous, but I'm going to show you kind of how we can hack these apart a little bit and have some fun with these lasers, using them in a little different way. We are also going to need a couple of the sticker strips from the Wanderlust collection. I'm not using a lot of stickers, but I do love these little arrows. And I'm going to show you a new way to use this sticker here with the camper on it. So again, your choice, how you want to use, which stickers you want to use, but we will be using some stickers from the Wanderlust collection. And also, we are going to need some Peekaboo pockets. So to follow along, I'm using 2 of the 5x7 Peekaboo pockets with the adhesive on the long side. They're both have the adhesive on the long side. And then I'm using 2 4x6 Peekaboo pockets. And these 2 have the adhesive on the short side. Okay, so it does matter which orientation you pull from your Peekaboo pockets in order to follow along with the video. So those are the basics as far as supplies. And of course, you know, I can't do a layout without foam square. So make sure you have your foam squares and your adhesive. And we will be using the 12-inch trimmer, of course. You will need your micro tip scissors and your border maker system with this really fun chevron border maker cartridge. And we're gonna get a lot of use out of this one today. It's a fun cartridge, so I hope you have it so you can try it and follow along with me. Okay, so let's first work with our 12-inch trimmer and this beautiful paper from the Wanderlust collection. So let's first start with getting some of our cutting done. And I'm going to go through each of these sheets and cut them along with you. So the first one is this kind of photographic paper, newspaper print, and it's got the little airplanes on the back. And this is going to be the base for our border. So all we need from this paper is a 2-inch strip. So find the side that you like. Any side would be good. I kind of like this with the darker on the edge. And I'm going to just cut a 2-inch strip from that paper. And I'm going to set that 2-inch strip aside. Okay, so the next paper is this gorgeous blue map paper. So one of those sheets I'd like you to just take and set aside with your border base strip. And the other one, we're going to cut a 1.5-inch strip from the side. So I'm just going to take my paper, slide it over to 1.5, and just cut that little edge off. And this is going to be used later. We're actually going to use the reverse side. So hang on to that strip. And then this base paper, we are also going to set aside. So I just want to make a note that if you would like to save some of your paper and get the center, you can do that as well. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and use full sheets of paper for the layout. Okay, our next paper we're going to cut is the camera paper. And this is going to be, both of these sheets are going to be exactly the same. And we're going to make 10 by 10 squares. So this is where you'll need to pull your little arm out. Make sure you have your stabilizer foot open. Oop, there goes mine. And we are going to come over to the 10-inch mark, and on the back side of this paper is kind of that leatherette look, so it doesn't really matter which way you cut. So we're going to take and cut a strip off here, turn the paper, and then we're going to make a perfect 10 by 10 square, just like that. Okay, and we'll set that square aside. We're going to do the same thing for the next piece of paper. So go over to the 10-inch mark. I love this camera paper. It's so pretty. Cut that 2-inch strip first and turn the paper, and then we're going to cut so that it's a perfect 10-inch square. Okay, got that. And we'll set that square aside too. Since we're making squares, we're going to also keep going with squares with the brown dark leatherette paper with the gray words on the back. And this paper is going to be cut in an 8 by 8 square. So we are going to first make that cut at 8 inches. And we're getting a nice pile over here of paper that we can use for other layouts and other collections. And then now we're going to turn that paper and again cut at the 8-inch mark. And then we're going to set this aside over here with our camera paper and do that one more time. So we're going to take the paper to the 8-inch mark, make our cut, turn it, and cut at 8 inches. It's really fun to see how all of these start layering together. All right, our last paper we have is this really fun writing paper with all the Wanderlust definitions, and it's got the blue stripe on the back. So since this stripe is directional and we're using this stripe for our border, make sure that you have this paper with the stripes going horizontally. Okay, so the first cut we are going to make for this paper are 2 5/8 inch strips. Okay, so 5/8 inch, and you'll notice right here on my trimmer, I actually had to use that dimension quite a bit. So I just wrote a 5 right there where that little 5/8 inch mark is. So I'm going to line it, make sure it's lined up at the top and the bottom, and we're going to cut 2 of those strips. Okay, so let's take that first strip, set it aside, and we're going to do that one more time at the 5/8 inch mark. Okay, so now that we have our 2 5/8 inch strips cut from the Wanderlust paper, what I want you to do is go ahead and flip the paper over, and we're going to make 2 more cuts, and we'll be using the blue stripe side. So those 2 cuts are both going to be at 1.5 inches. So we're going to make 1 cut at 1.5 and set that aside in our pile, and then make another 1.5 inch cut. And then on this last piece, what I'd like you to do is actually turn it and just trim off a 1/2 inch from the bottom of that strip. This is what we're going to use to make our border, and that's just a little decorative detail that I'm going to have you do. So one will be 11.5 by 1.5, and the other one will be 12 by 1.5. Okay, so now we've got all of our cutting aside. Let's get started on the next part of our layout. Okay, so I've brought my layout back on screen to kind of give you an idea of the next pieces we'll be working on for the layout. And what I want to do is show you how to make this decorative element from the laser borders, as well as this decorative element from the laser borders, and this element from the laser borders. So I have the 3 laser mats that I just showed you on my mat in front of me. And for this, we are going to use, again, our 12-inch trimmer and our micro tip scissors. And this is really a lot easier than it might seem. And don't worry, these beautiful laser mats look just as good cut apart as they do together. So there's a lot of things you can do with this decorative element. So what we're going to start with, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see better, is I'm going to just pick one side or the other and trim this edge so that we have just one strip of this hexagon border. Okay, so I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to follow along just like that and cut it apart. Okay, and you'll notice that you might have this little edge detail, and that's fine. We're going to come back and trim all of that, but it may be easier at first just to make all the same directional cuts with your border, and then come back in and do the other additional little touch-ups. So what I'm doing is I'm just following the line of my hexagons. Okay, so I'm going to go straight. If you notice here, I'm going to go straight to cut that. And like I said, you can see now I have these little extra points, but we're going to come back in. Hope you can see those. We're going to come back in and trim those off. Okay, so here we go. Again, I'm going to go right along with the edge of that hexagon with my scissors. Trim those other little pieces just like that. And so, move it around and get it to where it's easy for you to cut. Here again, going straight. Okay, couple more. This one, again, keep that angle of the hexagon, go straight. And then the last cut, we're going to get in there for this last cut and just go right along that edge. Okay, so if you were following along, now what you'll notice is you have this really strange piece with all these little extra edges off the end. So now what you can do, since I'm right-handed, it's easier for me to flip and just cut the same direction. So what I'm going to do is just come in here and trim off those little bitty extra pieces, just like that. One here, one here. And then you have this beautiful new embellishment piece, which we are going to use for our border. All right, and just tuck this one aside because there's always good fun stuff to do with a piece like this. Okay, now we are going to do a little cut apart on this beautiful circle because what I really wanted was just this decorative element at the edge, but I noticed this is a really fun layering piece from the center of this. So I wanted to save this because it was just going to get covered up in my design. So what I'd have you do is just reach your scissors in again, and we're just going to cut this circle right out of the center. We're just going to free it up, okay? So again, spinning here, spin one more time, and cut that apart, and then now we're going to cut this apart as well, just like that. So like I said, this is a perfect layering piece. It's really nice and sturdy, beautiful color. So make sure you tuck that aside as well. Okay, so now what we have are our cut apart laser, which we can put in our pile, and two more lasers that we are going to need our 12-inch trimmer to finish up with. So I'm going to keep this, let me zoom out just a little for you here. Okay, so what I want to do now is trim. You'll notice this mat, this laser mat, is 6.5 by 4.5, and in order for it to fit in a peekaboo pocket, it needs to be a 6 by 4. So we are going to just trim those ever so small edges off to trim this down so that it is a 6 by 4 shape. Okay, so the first one is cutting 1/4 inch off of each of the long sides. Okay, make sure we're nice and straight. And since this is a thicker laser paper, you may just want to make sure you are clear before you move it. Okay, I'm going to turn again, cut that 1/4 inch off. So just make sure you're loose before you move it. Looks good. Turn it again. So now I'm going to check that I'm at right on the 4-inch line. Here we go. And cut that. So now I have a 4-inch. Look, see, I didn't quite get that. So that's why I'm holding it. I need to run through again. Make sure I'm loose. And one more time. And so now I'm going to check that I have it at the 6-inch, and I'm trimming that now down to a perfect 4 by 6. Yep, I'm loose on that one. Okay, so now I have this really interesting, beautiful laser 4 by 6 piece. So now we just also need to trim this because there is no reason to tuck all of this behind other paper, and instead we're going to cut it so we can use it in another place. So for this element, what I want you to do is line the side of the circle up at 2.5 on your trimmer. 2.5, and we're just going to cut it right there. Now you may want to move it so that your blade, the little dotted line right here, is going to cut in between your loops. I hope you can see that. And then right there at the 2.5. So you might have to kind of move things around a smidge until you get it right in place. Okay, so about right there. I'm going to leave those other loops intact and then just cut my circle. Make sure, again, I'm loose. I'm going to use this smaller half, and this would be another beautiful piece to put somewhere else on a different layout. Okay, but we're going to use that piece. All right, so we are now going to switch tools and move on to the Border Maker system and have some fun with this fun new chevron. Okay, so we are going to move on now and work with our Border Maker system and get our decorative edge to these 10 by 10 papers. So what I'm going to have you do, this is a kind of a fun new technique that I was playing around with and learned about, and you'll see that I've actually marked my Border Maker tray at these two end lines. So if you turn your tray over, you'll see that these have plastic markings, and those are actually inch markings. So what I ended up doing was marking the top one and the bottom one, because that actually takes an inch off the top of the paper and an inch off the bottom of the paper, which correlates with our 10 by 10. So I'm going to slide my 10 by 10 paper in the tray and line it up with that top mark and pull the tray back. And so typically what we do in order to use the Border Maker cartridge is we start at the top position, which is my number 1. But instead, what I want you to do is move it down to position number 2. So it is the second little notch on your Border Maker system. We're going to start there by punching. So we're going to punch 2, 3, 4, and 5, and stop. We're not going to do the last punch. Instead, open your tray, pull it out, turn your paper, and we're going to keep rotating it in the same direction. Okay, and line the top of that paper up again with the top line on your tray, just like that. Whoops, we're going to pull that tray back, and we're going to do the same thing. So we are going to punch in the number 2 spot, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're going to stop there. Once again, open the tray, turn your paper, pull your tray out, and line up the edge with the white line. Okay, and here we go with the third side. 1, we're going to punch in the second spot, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and I'm going to have you stop. If you've seen this technique when I introduced it on my Friday night scrapbooking, we went all the way around. But for this design, I want you to stop with just 3 edges. Okay, so we're going to do that again with the second paper. Now that you've got the hang of it, again, we're going to punch 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are 2-inch segments, but we are going to start with the second. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing with our second 10 by 10 square. We're going to start in the second position, 3, 4, 5. Give it a spin. Okay, I'm lined up there at the top. And flip the tray back. 1, 2, 3, 4 punches, starting in the number 2 position. Pull that tray out and get the third edge. Line that right up at the top. Okay. Pull the tray back, and you can see we get a lot of confetti from this. Starting in 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now we have that really fun decorative interior edge for the chevron. Okay, so before we get into building our base pages, I have just a couple more cuts for you to make. And we are going to take the camera paper we just punched the chevron border edge on, and on the non-punched side, I just want to have you cut a 1/2 inch off the edge. Okay, so I'm going to line that up at 1/2 inch. And then we're just going to trim that down and set aside that little strip. Do the same thing one more time with, again, the non-punched side of the camera paper. Okay, once we've made those final cuts, we are ready to build our base pages. Okay, so let's get started. One of the reasons I just had you do that one final little touch is to give you the feel when we are putting both of these pages side by side that it's kind of a continuous flow through your 2 pages. So just taking that little 1/2 inch off the edge really does kind of group this together. Okay, so you'll notice on my mats, which I love building my base pages on, I have the full sheet of blue map paper here on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I have the paper that we trimmed down. And these both, the camera paper that we just also trimmed the center out of, fit perfectly right here. So once now we're lined up on our mat, you can see that this inside paper is going to go right at the 11 inch and the 1 inch mark. So you can grab your repositionable adhesive or whatever your favorite adhesive is and put some adhesive on this and go ahead and set that first piece in place right at the 11 and the 1. Okay. Got that lined up. And then we'll do the same for the other side. I'm going to make sure my blue paper is lined up on my mat. Add that adhesive. Okay, and line the second sheet up at the 11 and the 1. Okay, and then just line those up right on your mat so that you have that looking like a continuous rectangle across both papers. Okay, so now that we have this first layer done, what I want to do is work on the left-hand side and finish off this. So you'll remember that we cut a strip. We cut 2 strips, and as you can see, this one is short and this one is a full 12-inch strip. So I'd like you to place that first 1.5 inch strip right on the edge of your mat. And then we're going to scoot your blue mat paper right into place so that they are touching. Then we're going to take one of our Wanderlust strips and add some adhesive to the stripe side here. And then we're going to do this little technique called welding, and we're going to weld the stripe paper with the blue mat paper. And basically all that is just taking one little strip of paper and using it kind of as the glue to hold both of those sides together. Now this is strictly a decorative detail, and I designed it this way because when you see how we build the border, it really does complement the way we build our border for this side of the paper. Okay, once we have our base set for both the left and the right, we can also now include our brown 8x8 squares. Okay, so let's go ahead and add those, and you'll see those get lined up right at the edges of the chevron border cartridge. Okay, so let's just add our brown squares so that they're centered. Again, center the edges on your chevrons. And move that into place. Okay. And on the other side as well. And so this is where you can see if you do want to gut your paper and do some paper saving, you're welcome to do that. Okay, let's add this paper. Oops, I have it in the wrong spot. Okay, I'm lining it up with the chevrons this time. Here, just like that. Okay, so now we have our 2 base pages built. We are going to build our border next so that I can slip that right in here. Okay, so now let's jump in to one of my favorite things, the border. So to get our border built, what we will need is the base layer that we cut, the shorter blue stripe paper, one of the strips of the Wanderlust, our trimmed out laser mat, and some fun little embellishments and stickers. Okay, so we're going to start. This is a super fun but super easy border to build. And as you recall, I had you trim a 1/2 inch off the end of this blue paper. And now what I want you to do is grab your multi-tip, and so now what I want you to do is grab your scissors, and we're just going to give this even another little detail. So if you grab the laser that we cut, you'll notice it has kind of this angular edge on it. So what I'm doing is lining that up on my blue stripe paper, center that, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim the paper so that it has that same edge detail. Okay, just like that. So the top of my laser was right at the top of my paper, but now you'll notice you have kind of that interesting shape to the paper layer. And I'm going to flip over to the other end, line up that top again, center it, and do the very same thing. Just trim off those edges and whoops, there we go. Trim right, just like that. Okay. So sometimes it's fun just to use details like that from different element pieces that give you kind of just that little bit of interest. So we're going to go ahead and put that centered, that blue strip that we just cut, centered on the background paper. Okay, so we'll go ahead, add our adhesive, and layer that on. And we're just going to put that centered both top, bottom, and side to side. Okay, there we go. So the next part, we're going to do a little bit of weaving, okay? So what I want you to do is actually start right here in the center of the laser border, and I want you to go from the bottom with your strip up and then back through so that that is your first weave. And then you'll get to the next set of 2, and you're going to come up from the bottom and down through. Then we have our 2 end pieces, and we're going to go from the bottom through and from the bottom through. So now you'll notice that this laser cut piece that we have is kind of you can move it around and it slides right through there. So I'm going to flip that over and we're going to add our adhesive to the back. Okay, so once we have our adhesive to the back, this actually goes all the way down to the bottom of our border on this end. So just hold that with your finger and then grab the top and center it right in between. You can kind of get an idea where it needs to go and center that on the top. Okay. And then you can adjust your laser piece to go wherever you would like it to go. So that will really depend on the little embellishments and die cuts that you use. So if you wanted to use, like, say, the camera and the outdoor adventure, you could always push that up a little bit. But for my border, what I ended up using was this Darling camera and the Enjoying the View embellishment and some of the arrow stickers. So I'll just show you how I put that together. So I'm going to add a little adhesive to the back of Enjoying the View. But again, like I said, you could use whatever embellishments kind of go for your page. So I'm just going to add this right here, Enjoying the View. And then of course the camera needs to go on foam squares because we've always got to pop a little something, right? So I'm going to put some foam squares on that camera. And then that camera is just going to go right underneath Enjoying the View. And once we have the camera in place, I'm going to add a few of these arrows. Arrows for me are just kind of one of those embellishments that I just can't get enough of. I love the kind of the look and the detail and the texture that arrows give to a little layout. Okay, so that's your little embellishment cluster, and as I've mentioned, make that your own, of course. But once we have that built, we have the perfect spot to put it. So if we just move our base page back in place, now you can see this spot right over here is the perfect spot for our border. Okay, so I'm going to add some adhesive and get that put down in place. Alrighty. So now that I have that in place, the last part I want to do to kind of finish up the base pages will be to add my little embellishment cluster over on the left-hand side. Okay, so now that we have our border in place, what I want to do is finish this base layout by adding our detail over here on the left-hand side. So we're going to add a little adhesive to the back of the laser strip. Okay, just a bit on here. And then we're going to take this and just tuck the very edge underneath the camera paper border. Just enough so that you don't see the edge. But you see this wonderful circular detail. So what I wanted to do was just create a little banner out of this leftover strip of paper, which has the blue map paper on the back. So I ended up cutting a 4-inch section off. And then this was 1.5, if you remember, but I just wanted a 1-inch banner. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this little 4-inch piece down to 1 inch. So now I have a 1x4 little strip of paper. And you know, a favorite way that I have to just cut that little banner is to hold your paper together. And then again, use your multi-purpose scissors and trim that angle off. Okay, just like that. And now you have a fun little banner. Okay, so now that we have our banner, we're going to take our sticker with the camper on it and our banner and build our cluster over here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to take this tree sticker and tuck it over the chevrons, but kind of right here at the top of this little circular area. Then I'm going to take my banner and again tuck that right underneath the brown paper, but I'm going to move it in place so that it covers the camper. And I may need to add a little adhesive to the back of that. And then we're going to, if you need to pull that up and just tuck it in, this is when that multi-purpose tool comes in so handy. Okay, so I'm going to just lift that. And the main thing I want to do is get this banner end so that it's actually on my 12-inch paper, right? Okay, so I'm going to move that into place just enough for me that I'm covering the camper and leaving that beautiful tree line. Okay, just like that. All right, so then we have just a fun little embellishment to add, the Explore. And this is one that I did again up on foam squares, just for added effect and dimension. And that's going to go right on top of the banner. Right here. And one more little sticker, and that is the sightseeing sticker. So we're going to grab that one and add that right down to the bottom. Just right there. So we have this wonderful little cluster up here on the left upper hand corner and another nice little cluster down here on the lower right hand corner. So now this really is open for anything you would like to do for your layout. So now what I'd like to do is show you how I've added in one of my absolute favorite products, which are the Peekaboo Pockets, and put those right into this layout. So I'm going to bring my original layout back and just again share what I did with Peekaboo Pockets and some of my photos. So what you'll notice on this side is that I used 2 of the 5x7 Peekaboo Pockets as a gatefold. But when you close them, this actually looks like a full photo. It looks like it's just continuing on. And I did that on purpose. So you can print your photos, your 5x7 photos. You'll need 2, but what you'll need to do is crop one on the right-hand side and then crop your second one on the left-hand side. So you'll notice this kind of does go inside a little bit, but it's the same photo. It's just that I blew it up a little bit and then cropped the right and then the left-hand side to make it look like one photo from the front. On the inside of this, I just added more photos. And again, you can take some of your leftover paper, cut those into 5x7s, add photos. This would be a great place for journaling. Add some more photos on the inside here. This dimension is 3.5 by 6. These are both 3.5 by 6 photos. And you'll notice they go perfectly underneath the 5x7. So on the left-hand side, what I ended up doing was taking the 2 4x6 Peekaboo Pockets and adding them in a staggered way over here on this side, and then adding some photos underneath. So let me just finish up by sharing exactly how you could do that same technique with the Peekaboos on the base pages. So we have our 2 brown squares, and that really is the kind of confine that we're putting our peekaboo pockets in. So we have those two 5x7 peekaboo pockets with the adhesive strip on the long side. So what you'll want to do is adhere these two 5x7s so that you're making a 7x7 square. So you're going to add one to one side with the adhesive on the right hand side, and then this one with the adhesive on the left hand side. But the width dimension then, instead of a 5x7, is going to be a 7. So you're going to end up with a 7x7 square on this side with your peekaboo pockets. On the left side, then, what you're going to do is take both of those peekaboo pockets and stagger them so that they fill the same space over here on the left-hand side. So you're going to leave that little edge detail on both sides, adhere those down one on top of the other. And then this is where, if you like the idea of adding in that decorative element of the laser mat, we've already cut it down to a 4x6, so that could just slide right in. And if you would prefer to add a photo behind this, that's entirely optional as well. So this area gives you so many more opportunities to add photos. And then down here, it's a perfect area for a 3x3 photo you could put down in this area, and a 4x3 photo would fit perfectly right underneath these peekaboo pockets. Okay, so there you have it. That is the entire layout. Once again, I hope you have enjoyed this Wanderlust walkthrough with some fun peekaboo interactive elements. If you would like to see more with the Wanderlust collection, don't forget to hop on over to both Kylie at Paper Sweet Pea YouTube channel and Noreen at Organized and Creative Mom. They have some wonderful more ideas for you with this gorgeous Wanderlust collection. So thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to leave a comment. Let us know what you think about our collaboration and if you'd like to see more. And until next time, I hope you take time to craft some joy. Bye for now.